10 minutes. It takes a little more when you put sensors and with the explaining, but the actual assessment is only 10 minutes long. Okay? And it will provide you with a wealth of information regarding it. So why do we do stress profile? Well, because we want to see how stress is affecting our client from a psychophysiological perspective. So we're going to stress really psychologically, and we're going to see what his physical reactions to it. Now, that's going to give us a lot of information about how he reacts to stress, and it's going to help us work as a team to come up, with a good intervention protocol for him. Okay? So, if you want to write this down, go ahead and write it down. It's got 5 phases, 5 stages to the stress profile. Each of them lasts 2 minutes. Okay, for a total of 10 minutes. Okay, we start with a baseline. Okay, we record without him doing anything. He's just sitting there, and we record a baseline. Okay, and we are going to think that baseline is our is how he reacts normally to things. Okay? Now, keep in mind, he could be relaxed today. He could be having a cold or flu. That could change things. So whenever you do an assessment, make sure the client is totally healthy. Because if he's fighting an infection, that changes the game completely. That changes things completely. Okay. Baseline 2 minutes. Then we go into the stress 1 phase. Okay, and we stress him for 2 minutes, and I'll show you what we do. Then the recovery 1 phase. So after we stress him for 2 minutes, we're going to let him recover for another 2 minutes. And in the recovery phase, what I want to see is how fast he recovers and how well he recovers. So I'm seeing the client's recovering abilities, his self-efficacy to manage stress. Then we do what we call the stress 2 phase. So we stress him again, and then the recovery 2 phase. So it's baseline, 1 stress, 1 recovery, 1 stress, and 1 recovery. And that's it. And then we proceed with the interpretation and the assessment and the feedback to the client. Okay? It's non-invasive. Okay? So the way I explain it is, Willie, what we're going to do is call it stress profile, and we're going to do it because we want to see how you stress out and how you react to stress. And that's going to give us very good information because it's going to help us provide, it's going to provide us with a better understanding of how your body and your mind react to stress, how it affects you, how it might affect you in the future, and what we can do to have an optimal intervention for you to control the stress. So it's not that you're never going to feel stressed. You're going to feel stressed, but we don't want the effects of the stress to grow as high as they do now. So your health is more optimal, and your well-being is more optimal, and your quality of life in general is more optimal. Okay. So I'm gonna do a series of procedures. I'm gonna be placing some sensors on you. Nothing hurts. Nothing's supposed to pinch or burn or anything. Nothing's gonna go into your body. Everything that we put is gonna record it, and it's gonna send it to the screen so we can watch it and see it. All right. All right. So do I have your permission to put things on you? Yeah. Okay, great. So. So the first thing we want to put on is the respirator. Okay. Why do we want to put it? Because he has to be standing up for that, right? And then when he sits down, he can put the other ones. Okay? So we take our amplifier. So this is the Nexus 10 amplifier. For those of you who are not familiar with it, it's a very neat, sturdy, robust amplifier. It's made in the Netherlands by Mind Media, and it's a 10-channel system. Okay, so you can record 10 channels simultaneously, or you can record 1 channel at a time. So it's very, 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 very useful because you can do combined work. If you want to do neurofeedback with muscle tension, you can do it. If you want to do neurofeedback with temperature, you can do it. If you want to combine respiration with muscle, you can do it. Okay? So it gives you the ability to do it. It's wireless, it's Bluetooth, so it connects via Bluetooth to the computer. It's got about a 30-meter range, and it allows for mobile interventions. So the client does not have to be confined to the chair to do it. We can take this into the world, into the real world, with an athlete or phobic. Let's say you want to expose somebody who's phobic to heights. You take me to go climbing and I take equipment with me and we go climbing and I do the recording. So it allows for that, ambulatory. So what we're going to do is we're going to do the sensor placement. Okay. This new version of the amplifier is very neat because it's got a built-in battery that can be charged, so you can charge it, and it records time. And it's got the SID card is got a larger memory if you want to record. So it's a very beautiful equipment. I really like it. So what we're going to do is I'm going to place it behind the client, and normally in your practices you will have a reclining chair which is very comfortable. You will have a small table behind it where you can place equipment. But for practical purposes we're going to do it. So I want you to stand up a little for me for a second, please. And this comes with a couple of Velcros to measure temperature. So it's got a smaller one for people who have fit, and this one was made with large people in mind. So people who are overweight, it's more for them, and this expands. So it goes. So the way we're going to do it is, and you watch me, and then you do it when you practice amongst yourself, is that you are going to place it on top of the navel, the belly button, okay, just about 1 centimeter above the belly button, like this, okay, and you are going to ask the client to hold it with their fingers like that, okay. So the first thing you want to do is you want to feed the end of the Velcro like this around it, and make sure you feed it right, because if you don't feed it right, then you have to turn it around. So make sure you feed it right, and so that when it comes around, it fits the same way, right? So really what I want you to do is I want you to place above your navel like this, and the person doesn't have to lift their shirt. So, because sexually abused victims, sometimes they think they're going to have to take their clothes off, and especially if it is a female client and a male therapist, that's going to cause a lot of stress. So you can tell them, nope, it's okay. And make sure when you approach them to ask if it's okay to approach them, everything, like every single detail. So I'm going to put it like this, and we're going to hold it with your fingers, okay? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to open this and I want you to turn around all the way for me. So that way you don't have to come close to the client. Okay? Just keep turning for me all the way, please. More. More. Keep turning, please. There you go. There you go. Okay. And see? So it fits like that. So see, the Velcro is nice and snug. So it's not twisted. Okay? Is that good for you? Is that nice and snug? Okay. Please hand me the cable. Thank you. And you can go ahead and sit. Okay. So we have our setup ready for the breathing, okay? Now why don't we just bring your arm up and bring the cable down, because sometimes they can lift the arms and they can pull on the cable, okay? So this has a specific order, which goes from left to right, okay? So the very first sensor we're gonna place is a respiration, which goes into channel H, okay? Now, BioTrace, I'll show you, has a way of, if you don't remember, you have a command key on the keyboard you can type, and it will show you what goes where. Okay? Now, if you notice, it has a red dot, and the amplifier has a red dot. So what you do is match the red dot with the red dot, and you don't have to force it. It goes in nicely. Okay? And what I like about this system is that the extra protection that the cables have to avoid noise. It's very good. So I go like this, and actually, what I'm going to do, I'm going to use this table, just play like this, because it's easier now. Stand up for me, please, and move forward, walk forward, please. Take a, very first step. There. You can sit down now, and so you can use a reclining chair with something like this, and it makes it easy. Okay. Now, next one we're going to place is the blood volume pressure or the heart rate sensor. Okay, and people sometimes use the non-dominant hand. Sometimes people use the dominant hand. My thinking is test where you feel best. Okay, sometimes I use the dominant hand where there's the right or the left, because that's where you get a better signal. A lot of people like the non-dominant hand because that's where you get a better signal. Okay, but for practical purposes, we're gonna go with the right. Okay, so. Your right hand or left handed? Right hand. So it's going to go into the index finger. Okay? And if you can see, you have the nail and finger, so you can follow it. So you can place it, and it looks like that. So you place it like this, you got it wrong. So it's got a drawing for you to follow. Okay. So please give your index finger and place this here. Okay, does pinch hurt anywhere? No? Okay, good. And again, it goes into the next channel. So the G channel. And the same thing. Red dot with the red dot. Very simple. Okay, now, and so you place your hand above your left like this. Yeah. Why like that? Because if you put it down, put it like this, please. It's adding pressure to the sensor, so it's going to cause some noise in this. So we want to minimize this noise as much as we can. So I just go ahead and place it right through it. And what I can do is I can use tape and tape it to the pan or the arm if I want to minimize movements. Because sometimes when clients start talking, they start doing this. And a lot of people talk with their hands, right? That's going to cause noise, right? And we want to protect these cables as much as we can. This can come off, so just be delicate. Now you can buy replacements for those anytime they go wrong. But if you take good care of them, I've had mine for 10 years. I've never had to replace them. So if you take good care of them, that's not a problem. All right. So we're good with that. Okay. Okay. Now next thing we're going to do is we're going to use the temperature. Which goes into the F channel. Okay. So your temperature is going to measure changes in your peripheral temperature, how your body heats up and cools down when you're stressed out, okay? And it's your sensor, and if you see it's got a white tip, okay? And that's where the sensor is for the temperature. And you have to put that against the skin. Make sure you put it against the skin, because if you do this, you're gonna get room temperature, not body temperature. So it's a rookie mistake that some people make, so make sure you put it there. Now, it comes with this tape. I'm going to recommend that you get something called Coban tape, C-O-B-A-N, Coban tape. Because it's an elastic tape, but it's not an adhesive like this one. Because these adhesive tape, what's end up happening is chipping off the paint on the sensor. So it shortens its life and duration. So the Coban is really useful. And you can get it at a major drugstore, C-O-B-A-N. Or you can ask a physical therapist. Coban tape. It's adhesive, but it sticks on itself, but it's non-adhesive, so it will protect. But for practical purposes, we're going to use that, okay? And so what I'm going to ask you to do is you raise your hand a little bit and spread your fingers out like that, a little more. There you go. And I'm going to place it in the middle fingers, okay? So I'm going to tape it over here, and then I might tape it to the palm of the hand or the forearm. If it's not too hairy on the forearm, we do it there. Now, the other reason why I like the Coban is because some people are allergic to this type of tape, or the micropore. Are you allergic to it?
No.
So always ask, allergic to any products on the skin? Because if they are, you have to get resourceful. Okay? Now, so those of you who work in hospitals, you're going to have amputees. People with no limbs. You have amputations. So where do you place the sensor? You can place it on the amputation or the other limb. Either double amputee, or you go with the where the amputation is. That's how you do it. Okay. So same thing. We're gonna place it in the channel. So red dot with the red dot, and it slides in nicely. And we're gonna raise your hand for this. And little more, please. Get your hand high, please. There. So remember, it goes against the skin. Because you don't want to record in room temperature. So now the other thing is make sure it's not too tight. How's that?
Okay.
So it's not too loose, so it comes off, but it's not too tight that you cut down circulation. Because then you're gonna go, oh boy, your hand is really cold, but there's no blood getting it. Because it's too tight, right? So that's good, right? And I'm gonna go ahead and can I tape it here?
Okay.
So I'll just tape it here, and that's gonna minimize movement. And we're gonna put your hand back. So you have to make sure that when they extend their arm, they're gonna pull on the cable. Because if they pull on the cable, they're gonna bring the amplifier down with you. Okay? And with hyperactive kids, you have to be extremely careful because they're going to want to get up really quickly and they're going to take everything home with them. So now this is very well built. It's very resistant. I mean, you could have an elephant step on it and it will resist it, but you never know. Okay. So next thing we're going to do is the galvanic skin response. This is your galvanic skin response sensor. You have to Velcro. I don't use the Velcros anymore for two reasons. Well, one reason being, if you have somebody with really thin, small fingers, it's not going to wrap around completely. And it's going to be loose. So instead, you can use these guys. And these you can buy from any medical supply. You know, these ones are big, which are the AKG, but they come small. You use them in the palm of the hand. Now, the other reason why we use the palm of the hand as opposed to the tip of the finger is because the palm of the hand has the largest accumulation of sweat glands. That's one of the largest accumulation of sweat glands in the body, so you get more reaction from that as opposed to the tip of the finger. Now, those of you who work with athletes, people who do gymnastics or climbing like myself are going to have thicker skin. So you have to be careful where you put the sensors because the signal will get reduced the thicker the skin is. Okay, so it's very important you do. Or people who work in construction. Anybody who uses their hands a lot, say like my hands, because of the climbing, they're going to have thicker skin. So you have to be mindful of that. But the way you do it is, again, you place the sensor in the next one, which is the E channel. And you match the red dot with the red dots. Slicing nicely, and you want to button first. Do not take it off because then it's going to stick on your hand and you're going to have to go like this, and that's going to create contamination. So you button it first, and this has no particular orientation. You just put it in the palm of the hand. Okay. So please raise your palm a little bit and put it a little flatter so the folks can see. Thank you. And one like this. So make sure it sticks nicely. And one like this. And there we go. Alright. So put it down, please. Good. And still has room to manipulate in case he moves. He's not going to take the amplifier with him. So I'm going to swing across the room, right? This one? This one. The galvanic skin response. Right.
This one,
that's blood temperature. Yeah, it's measuring how much blood flow is going there. So it's that's your heart rate. So let's rephrase. That's your respiration. This is your heart rate. This is your temperature and your galvanic skin response. And last but not least, we're gonna do the muscles. Now, some people like to do the masseters and the temporals. I don't. Why? Because when people are stressed out, they mostly accumulate the pain and the traps. You know, the neck, the trapezius of the neck, trapezius of the shoulders. So you get better reactions there. One of the drawbacks is that you get the heartbeat, a little bit of a pulse artifact, but not too much. You can. There's ways you can work around. And the way you do it, you can use either. You have EEG and EXG. The system comes with two of these. This can be used for both EMG and Neurofeedback. So what I recommend people do when they buy the Nexus, right, is that they put one away and just work with one. So in case this one gets ruined, you get the other. Okay. Now the thing you have to be mindful and careful about is it's this endings right here. So you have to make sure you don't bend them from here too much, or you bend them from here too much, because that will shorten the sensor's life. Okay, so if you go like this and like this, and you twist them and wind them and unwind them too much, that will shorten them, because you're gonna end up having to buy it. Okay, so what I recommend is you hang it somewhere where it's nice, and then you hang it like that. If you're taking it for a treat because you're gonna do some work outside the city in another country, some teaching, whatever, then you need to wind them and wind it. But for the most part, I recommend you keep them hanging like this. Okay? And second, it comes with this little guy which you can clip to the clothing. It minimizes movement too. Perfect. So, what you're going to want to do is bend your head forward for me. Bend your head forward, like that thing. Stay like that for a second. So, can I touch the skin?
Okay.
So we're going to use the traps on the neck and traps on the shoulders, okay? Because that's where most people accumulate the stress, right? This is where you need to get more specific because the muscle fibers have a specific orientation. If you don't know, who do you ask? Most of you work in multi-professional settings, right? University or labs or something. So if you don't know who is the right person to ask, a doctor, an MD, physician, because they know the orientation of the fibers. If there's no doctor, you can ask a physical therapist. If not, you can ask Dr. Google. He will tell you, okay? There's charts on the internet that you can find where you can have that. So the way the fibers go is like this and like this. So they go diagonally like that. So you're gonna place the sensor in this like diagonal, right? Why is that? Because the better the sensor placement, the more recruitment we're gonna have. What recruitment means is we're gonna activate more muscle fibers. The more we activate, the better the rate is going to be. Okay? So for that, I'm gonna use, can you hand me that to the box? Thank you. You can buy these alcohol swabs, which you use to abrade the skin on the scalp for neurofeedback, but you can use to abrade the skin for biofeedback. So what you're gonna do is abrade the skin. Now, recommendation. You may know this, but it's a good reminder. Whatever you do, no matter what you do not make the client bleed. Okay? Because if they bleed, one is going to be uncomfortable and awkward, and two, you're entering in contact with body fluids. So you got HIV, hepatitis, all those things. Now, normally the skin here is not, unless you break really hard, you're not going to make it bleed. But when you do the scalp for neurofeedback, be very careful with that, please. So what we do, are you allergic to alcohol?
No.
It's going to feel cold. Okay? So what I'm going to do is I take out the pad and I abrade the area of interest. So that takes care of sweat or any products that you use, creams and lotions. Because otherwise the sensor is not going to stick very well, the electrode. And now, I use the word sensor as opposed to electrode because I don't want people to think I'm going to electrocute them. Some clients might get anxious. I go electrode, so that means there's going to be electricity involved. So I go sensor because it's sensing the area. But some colleagues are really particular about that and they get upset if you don't things right in. So I choose the sensors. Now the other thing that I can do is I can do some touching here, and right here I feel it. So there's a big knot here and a big knot here. Would you say that's you feel the pain when you get stressed, really? Maybe here. Where would you say it is then? Where would you say you feel tension when you're stressed out here? When you don't feel a lot of tension?
Yeah. The right.
Right here?
Yeah.
So that's a good point?
Yeah.
And this one here?
Me.
Well, I feel it there, so we'll go with that, okay? All right, so again, we're going to use this. All right, and you're going to see this has two channels. They're going to be labeled channel 1. This is one of the things you have to be careful with. Channel 1 and channel 2. Okay, so it's 1 with a red lead and a black lead, and 2 with a red lead and black lead. Okay, so 1 is going to be your active sensor. The other one's going to be your reference sensor, just like neurofeedback. 1 active, 1 reference. Okay. It could be either one. The blacks could be the active, the reds could be the reference. Now, the way I like to teach it for practical purposes is red is the active, black is the reference. Okay, and the active is going to go on the left side, the reference on the right side. Okay, so for the traps we're going to use for the neck, we're going to use channel 1. For the shoulders, we're going to use channel 2. Okay, And the way we do it is the same thing. We're gonna clip it and button it before we use it. So which one goes on the left? The active, which is the what color?
Red.
The red. So I use a little bit of a diagonal placement. And I want to make sure there's not a lot of hair in the area underneath, because then when I pull them out, it can be really painful. Okay? Especially if women have more hair back there, so it's kind of painful. But I can show you where you can take them off by reducing that. And then we have the left for the shoulder. Just like that. Make sure that I'm not pulling the cable too aggressively, because there's those things. So you have to be very, very careful when you do this. And then with the black, we're going to go on the right. Okay, so that's it for this set, right? And this is going to go into channel B, which is the second one. If you make the mistake of putting it on channel 1, it's not going to record anything. That's for your neurofeedback. So this is for EMG, this is for neurofeedback. I'm going to go with the EMG, and same thing, we match the red dot with the red dot, and there we go. All right? Good. And we need one more, which is our ground cable. Oh, this is the ground cable. There we go. And we need to place a ground cable in between the active sensors, otherwise we're going to have noise. Okay? Because if we put it like this, they're going to cancel each other out. So you're going to get noise in the signal. You always need your ground sensor. So if for some strange reason you do the placement and you see the EMGs looking very funky, all right? It's because you missed this. Or you could have a broken lead. If you have the ground and you still get noise, you have to check for other sources of contamination, right? And the ground is going to go into this tiny little slot here. Okay? So you need to force it. And then you put one more sensor in between the active ones. So where you put it, you go back to the shoulders and go in between the neck, in between the shoulders, and there it goes. Alright? You good?
Yep.
Now, make sure that you see how the cable is bending here. So what you do, you bring it down and problem solved. Because if you do it like this, then you're going to have the problem with the bending. See the bending at the ending? That's going to ruin your cable very soon. You're going to need to buy a new one. So you have to make sure you minimize the issue. And then you bring the clip, and I'm going to bring up your shirt a little bit, really. And we are ready to go. Right? So go ahead and slide forward the chair a little bit. There you go. And lean back. Get as comfortable as you can. Are you comfortable there?
Yeah.
Okay. Now I need the USB port for the Nexus for the amplifier, please. Because I need to sync it up with the computer. So what you do is you turn on the amplifier from this button, on button, and it starts there. So it shows you the charge remaining in your battery, your date, right? And it's blinking, the Bluetooth is blinking, so I need to sync it up with the computer. Okay? It brings its own Bluetooth. If you lose it, any Bluetooth will do. You don't have to order it from MindMe. Okay, that's a good thing. You can order it at any hardware store. Okay? So in case you lose it. So I recommend you have 2 or 3 as a backup. You forget it or you lose it.
Yeah, would you comment once more about the reason placing all the sensors at the dominant?
Usually because there's more activity. As far as the heart rate goes, the dominant hand of the body is where the electromagnetic pulse of the heart is picked up the better.
Oh, okay.
As far as the temperature goes, there's more blood flow because the hands is used more. And then the GSR could be either hand, but I like the same hand just because I like to keep the uniformity to it, so I don't have to define with too many cables moving. Okay.